Part 4. The true Sabbath is entered by faith, not by changing days. Many argue that since believers enter a spiritual rest through faith in Christ, the literal seventh-day Sabbath is no longer required. But does spiritual rest replace obedience, or do both work together in harmony? The New Testament reveals that entering God's rest by faith is not a license to ignore His commandments, but a deeper way to fulfill them. Q1. How do believers enter God's Sabbath rest? A1. Hebrews 4:3. For we which have believed do enter into rest. Faith is the key to entering God's Sabbath rest. When you trust in Jesus for salvation, you cease striving to earn righteousness and rest in His finished work. But does that mean the weekly Sabbath is obsolete? Not at all. Q2. What is the relationship between spiritual rest and the seventh-day Sabbath? A2. Hebrews 4:9-10. There remaineth therefore a rest to the people of God. For he that is entered into his rest, he also hath ceased from his own works, as God did from his. The Greek word for rest here is sabbatismos, meaning Sabbath-keeping. The passage reveals that Sabbath-keeping still remains for God's people, not abolished, but deepened in meaning. Q3. Didn't Jesus fulfill the law? A3. Matthew 5:17-18. Think not that I am come to destroy the law. Till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law. Jesus fulfilled the law in righteousness and example, but he did not erase God's commandments. Fulfilling the law includes honoring God's Sabbath. Challenge to pastors and theologians. If faith cancels obedience, then why did Jesus command, "If ye love me, keep my commandments"? John 14:15. How can we honor God in spirit while ignoring the very commandment he wrote with his own finger? Exodus 31:18. Romans 3:31 answers clearly. Do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid, yea, we establish the law. Faith upholds the law. It does not cancel it. Let's reflect on this harmony. Spiritual rest in Christ saves us. Weekly Sabbath observance reminds us of that salvation. One is inward, the other is outward. Romans 14:5-6 is often quoted to suggest that Sabbath keeping is a personal preference. But Paul never said all days are holy. He said, let each person be fully convinced. He spoke to a church wrestling with food, feasts, and fasting, not replacing the 10 Commandments. Truth, entering spiritual rest is not a loophole to ignore the Sabbath. It's an invitation to keep it more meaningfully. It's the difference between legalistic observance and joyful, faith-filled obedience. Ask yourself, if entering God's rest is spiritual, does that mean I'm free to ignore what God said is holy? If Jesus rested on the seventh day, and I rest in Him, shouldn't I follow His example? If faith makes the law stronger, why discard the one commandment that begins with remember? Conclusion. The Sabbath is not just about a day, it's about identity. It reminds us that we are children of the Creator, saved by grace, walking in His ways. We rest spiritually by faith in Christ and physically every seventh day as a sign of our covenant. Will you rest in Christ without forgetting the very day He sanctified as holy?